wish you'd understand. I just wish that God had a better plan. I'm so confused. I need a redo. Inside of me that's begging and begging and pleading. I just wanna feel free. I just wanna feel lovely. I'm surrounded by love that's in pain. Can I wipe your tears away? Please don't hurt for me. I hate that it's for me. It's for me.
Hi, welcome to the MS Michigan Man 64 podcast. Thank you to Amber K for that amazing introduction into the show. Amber K is warrior number 2. She is a singer-songwriter that wrote I Hate That It's For Me. Please check out her episode. Me and Amber have teamed up just to try to help people understand what it's like living with a chronic disease and how you have to keep on fighting the fight every day. My name is Brian. I am the MS Michigan Man 64. Before I got diagnosed 28 years ago, I was playing football at the University of Michigan, and I went from living that lifestyle to 4 years after that being diagnosed with MS, and I talk about my journey as well as the journey of other chronic disease warriors around the world just to try to help people understand what it's like, how it affects your mental health, how it affects your family, how it affects your career. Today, I am talking to an MSer from the state Ravalombe in Kentucky. I met Amanda on TikTok a few weeks ago. She was only diagnosed with her MS in 2025, but her journey is absolutely amazing. She's a cancer survivor, and she is also diagnosed with POTS and NMO, neuromyelitis optica, which is a more severe form of MS, and we're going to talk a whole lot about that. But please welcome to the podcast, Amanda. How you doing today, Amanda?
Hi.
Good. Hey, Amanda, I know you have a lot going on and in a short period of time. I just want to tell you right off the rip, I think you're amazing just the way you're handling all these diagnoses that you have that's been put on you. And I know that your journey started way before 2025. Can you kind of just take us through what happened to you, how you beat cancer, and then what led up to your diagnosis of NMO and MS?
Okay. I started having symptoms in like 2018. I was going to the ER a lot because I was doing the dizziness and having a lot of panic attacks. Like I was having panic attacks all the time. They were lasting like hours. I'd never had those before. So I kept going and, they just was pretty much putting it on my mental, like to the point they were wanting me to go to like a 30-day treatment.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, no, this is different. My blood pressure will go up. My blood pressure will go down.
Mm-hmm.
So I dealt with that until 2021. Well, no, 2020. I could not feel the bottom of my right foot. I kept telling them like my foot's numb. They couldn't figure out why. They were doing a bunch of tests. I wound up breaking my foot and had to have a pretty extensive surgery on my ankle. I got the pins and plates and all that. So after that, my balance got so much worse. They kept saying, oh, it's the trauma from the foot. And I'm like, well, I don't understand because it was already numb. That's why I broke it.
Yeah.
Couldn't figure it out.
Yeah.
So 2021, I got really, really sick, and I had to go to the ER. They admitted me for taking my gallbladder out. So I had that out, and they told me, they were like, we found a spot on your pancreas. We're going to refer you somewhere. That's all they told me. So like a few days later, I get a call from the Markey Cancer Center. And at this time, my daughter's had cancer twice and she beat hers. So I thought they were calling for like a checkup for her.
Yeah.
And they were like, no, we're calling for you. And I'm like, why are you calling for me? And I remember I was in Walmart, like grabbing a bag of dog food. And this lady's like, for the cancer in your pancreas. And I'm like, what cancer in my pancreas? And I just started crying. And I remember my dad looked at me and was like, you okay? And I'm like, no, apparently I have cancer. I found out from the registration lady. So she had made that appointment. And when I went, they told me I have a rare type of cancer. It's called insulinoma. And the problem with this cancer is there's no symptoms. It was in my pancreas, but they're called neochondrin tumors, and they go through your entire bloodstream. So insulinoma is very, very rare. And the only symptoms are you have panic attacks, and every now and then your sugar will drop. That's it.
Wow. And they
So I had lost.
So let me ask you this, Amanda. So they diagnosed this with a blood test. Is that how they came up with the diagnosis?
No, they'd seen the tumor when they took my pancreas out. I mean, when they took my gallbladder out.
Okay. Okay.
And I guess it was on the CAT scan of when they took my gallbladder out. They seen it there, but she said she physically seen it. But insulinoma is so rare that you have to go, to a special surgeon. So they told me that they would just go in, and it's called scooping it out because it was in the tail of my pancreas. She was like, luckily it was in the tail. If it was in the other part, it would have been more traumatic. So I had lost a lot of weight, didn't even realize I was losing that much weight. I had to wait like 6 weeks and drink. I had to eat 3,600 calories a day.
Wow.
To try to get the weight up for them to do the surgery. So I did that. I did the surgery. They said I'd only be in there in a couple hours. And 9 hours later, I came out. The tumor was connected to one of my main arteries. So they had to take half my pancreas, take my spleen, and just kind of go from there. But they had also said that there was something in I had a lesion in my liver, but, it wasn't like cancerous.
Yeah.
But they weren't really concerned of it at that time. It wasn't that bad.
Right.
And I remember waking up from surgery and I could not walk. My legs felt like they weren't there.
Yeah.
So going through this, I kept having the symptoms of the blood pressure was going crazy. I was passing out. I wasn't staying hydrated, even though I was drinking all the time. I started getting the numbness. I only had it in my right leg at that time. Now I started getting it in my left leg, and I kept complaining. So they sent me to neurology. She did a nerve conduction test. She was like, oh, you're fine. It's like, I still don't understand why I don't feel stuff.
Yeah.
So I wound up going to the ER, and another neurologist seen me, and he was like, I'm going to send you to another neurologist. And at this time, I wound up seeing, I think, 5. I seen rheumatoid. I seen a bunch of different doctors that couldn't figure this out because all my labs were like good. I didn't have lupus. They all thought I had lupus.
Oh.
Did not have lupus, none of that.
Yeah.
My oncologist was like, you have an autoimmune disorder and it needs to be found out, and the cancer has brought it out.
Wow.
So finally, they sent me to a MS specialist. He did an MRI, not January of 2020, January of 2025. He told me I had a lesion in between my shoulder blades, and they thought it was transverse myelitis. He said, but whatever that's done, they kept asking me if I'd ever been in a car wreck or, fell real hard. And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
So he was like, they didn't know where it came from. So really, whatever traumatic event had happened, I should not, have any more issues.
Right. Right.
Well, it kept rising to my stomach, like the numbness feeling. I was still having issues in my face, like my eye would twitch all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes like my vision would get blurry.
Yeah.
It was like looking through water. And then one time my vision went out, and it wasn't very long, but on my right side it just went black, but it came back. So he said, I'm going to do another MRI. And I said, okay. They found 2 more lesions in my lower back. And he was like, these are MS lesions. But I had a spinal tap. My spinal tap said, everything was good. Yeah. That's why they were doing everything. They were testing me from like lead-based paint to all.
Yeah.
But when you have cancer, they kind of just focus on the cancer. So this was like the after effects.
Right.
And in the meantime, I wound up getting a pituitary gland tumor that was, making my heart race, blood pressure, hormones, everything.
Yeah.
So they were kind of putting it on that because even though I don't have diabetes, I get the symptoms from it because I don't have all my pancreas.
Gotcha. And
So through the list,
I understand what you're saying. You're coming in and you're getting treated for cancer. And I know we talked about this before we recorded. And when you go to a doctor and you're getting treated for cancer, that's number one. And I know you said they're kind of missing the MS, but their concern is they want to treat that cancer. And I understand it, but that's got to be frustrating for you as the patient. Just going through that, and you're just looking for answers. And I just can't imagine what's going through your head at that time.
It was because I kept going to my oncologist and he was like, this is not cancer related. This is not cancer related. He was like, it's some type of autoimmune disorder. And he was like, they kept asking me if I'd been vaccinated for COVID or had COVID, neither one, because I couldn't get vaccinated because I had the cancer at the time. So he told me that when you get really, really sick, it brings out an autoimmune disorder.
I totally believe that, Amanda. I think that any kind of trauma to your body brings out autoimmune. I at 15 years old, I went through my dad dying. That was a traumatic event. And then, I went through, I broke a couple vertebrae in my back when I was playing football at Michigan. And then I got in a car accident when I was 23. And they actually told me when I was 23 that I had signs of MS, but I felt fine. But I mean, that trauma, and then 4 years later, it's just the stress of going through and planning a wedding. That's what kicked off my MS. I think it was in my body for a long time, just sitting dormant, and stress is what brought it out. And I can totally understand the trauma of that cancer diagnosis and that surgery actually triggering your MS symptoms. I can totally see that.
That and my mom was fighting cancer at the time and she wound up passing away. So I had that stress. Also, I was having, every time I was getting scans, they were finding lesions on my organs. I've got lesions on everything but my heart. So I started going into liver disease. And when they did when my vision had went out, he said, I hate to say this, but I think you have NMO, but we have to, I had to go see a optical neurologist.
Yeah.
So they, tested my eyes and she said, right now they're good, but they're weakening and it attacks your optic nerve.
Yeah.
So she was like, as of now, you're okay, but I have to have another MRI, I think like next week. And they just kind of monitor it. But with NMO, they were like, you will go blind. Most people don't live longer than 5 years.
Yeah. The mortality rate for NMO. I know I recorded with a lady she actually went from an MS diagnosis to an NMO diagnosis back to an MS diagnosis. And that was when I first started learning about NMO. And it's a more severe type of MS.
Yeah.
And the mortality rate is 5 years. And I just can't even imagine what's going through your head when you got doctors telling you this, Amanda.
I went through a severe depression because my body has been in fight or flight since the cancer. It's never stopped. And that was why I was getting more damage than need be. And they couldn't figure it out because I see 23 different specialists. So, they kept passing it around. Oh, well, it could be diabetes. My oncologist luckily had put me on laranitide. I always say it wrong. And I've been on that for like 2 years and it helps with when you have an autoimmune disorder, your nervous system just attacks everything. I was having like a lot of allergies. My antihistamines would not calm down. It helped with like the flushing, and it also kills cancer cells for the type of cancer I had.
Okay.
And the type of cancer I had is very, very rare. So on that note, most people that get it usually don't get it till over the age of 65. And the mortality rate is very, very high. Any type of pancreas cancer is very high.
Yeah.
But where it went through my bloodstream, I take the shot because he said there could be a speck that's still in my blood that they don't see. So it kills, the cancer cells, but it also helps with autoimmune disorders.
Okay.
So I went
Go ahead.
through that, and then the reason they kind of knew it was the NMO is the NMO also attacks your organs.
Gotcha.
So now I'm in liver disease because of the NMO.
Gotcha. What kind of a treatment path do you go down with an NMO as compared to just my kind of MS, relapse remit or primary progressive? What's the treatment path for NMO?
It's the same thing as MS, the immune suppressants. I take Rituxan because I can't take a lot of the other, you get everybody's like, oh, well, try this treatment, try this treatment. I can't take them because they have the cancer gene in them. So I am down to, I can only take Rituxan, and I think they said if this one didn't work, there's one other, but that's it. Like, I can't take the other ones because a lot of people don't understand these immune suppressants also can carry the cancer gene because it's like taking chemo. It shuts down your immune system to calm down the lesions and the fight or flight to keep your body calm.
Yeah.
I started that in November. I've had 2 doses, and honestly, I felt worse after I did them. Now, I will say that it calmed down, some of the inflammation, where your body is always feeling like, it's so hard to describe some of the symptoms to MS to people that don't have it. It's like your body is on fire on the inside.
Yeah. And everything feels like it's 20 pounds heavier than it should be. It feels like you're walking around with 20-pound weights on your legs. And I always describe my legs like, everybody has sat down on the toilet too long and, your legs go numb.
Yeah.
I always tell people, that imagine that feeling and then magnify that by 50. And that's what my legs feel like 24/7.
Yes, they burn, they tingle, but like I had told my neurologist, because I didn't know how to explain it, I don't have the sensation of like scratching or any of those.
Yeah.
Like, I don't get goosebumps anymore.
Yeah.
Where I had the pituitary gland tumor, I don't have an adrenaline rush. Like, so everything is off to me. Like, I know I should feel a certain way, but I don't.
Yeah. How did your family, because I know you have kids and all that, how did your family understand this diagnosis when you were going through all this?
I don't think they really do. I think, a lot of people, they'll ask my kids what's wrong with her, and they'll say it's cancer. It was cancer, but thank God. April, I will be in remission for 4 years.
Awesome.
But, down my journey, I wound up getting foot drop. My mobility went down like in a year.
Yeah.
I was, walking normally, but I used a cane because of my, the balance.
Yeah.
Now I'm on a walker / wheelchair type thing. And that went fast. That was like maybe a year and a half, which I know doesn't seem like it's fast to people, but that is.
Oh, yeah.
It's extremely fast.
Oh, yeah.
I still, can take care of myself, but I don't think they understand. Like, I tell them what it is,
Right.
but every time I go to the doctor, I get a new diagnosis.
Yeah.
And I guess what makes the NMO worse is now, my liver is changing rapidly. Last summer, I went to the ER for throwing up blood. They told me that I had fatty liver disease. I had a scan, and that was in May. I had a scan in August for my cancer. They check my pancreas every, few months.
Yeah.
They had noticed my liver's already changed. So now it's like going into pretty much cirrhosis. So everybody's, all my doctors are concerned. I can't take this medicine. I can't do this. Stress is like a big thing. But luckily, my kids are grown. but I still don't think they like I can tell them everything, but I don't think they understand.
Yeah. I know it's hard
Oh,
I think it's hard for everybody involved in in any kind of a diagnosis, Amanda, just trying to get people to understand what we're going through and, just letting them know how we're feeling. And I think everybody has their own way of processing it too. I have two kids, one's 23, one's 27, and they both process my MS differently.
yeah.
They talk to me differently about it. My son's a little bit different talking to me than my daughter. And that's a part of the mental, that we have to go through, is that we're managing other people, and we just want people just to understand it.
Well, I'll tell you what, like like I said, every time I go to the doctor, so they know, like I've already signed, it's like a medical will. So it took my kids from the responsibility of that.
Hmm.
Like they already, my doctors know what I want,
Yeah.
because when I first got the cancer, they said the only thing that they could guarantee, not even really guarantee me, is maybe 5 more years of life. I'm almost to that 5 year mark. My oncologist had actually told me, like, you're dying, but it's not of cancer, something else, because like it's attacking my organs. So I think I was more happy when I found the NMO diagnosis, because it made sense then.
Yeah.
I feel like I had closure because I've only went through this journey because on one side of, like, my mom's side, is a lot of cancer, like a lot of death from their cancers. And then on my dad's side is like Parkinson's, dementia. Um, they said that, those genes had mutated. I carried the MS gene, and then, I had a very trauma life.
Yeah.
So I was always stressed.
Yeah.
Then, the cancer gene just made this shit show, to be honestly, that's what I call it.
Yeah.
So I don't, like, now when I go to the doctor, I wasn't really talking about it to anybody until I got on TikTok one night, and there was this live, and it was baby girl. And I owe this woman so much because I was in a very, very, very dark place. And, I wasn't I wasn't in a clear head.
Yeah.
And since that day, and it's, been a few months now, she has been, her lives, there's a lady named Ams, her lives and Sparkle
Yeah.
has made my life make sense,
Yeah.
because I am talking to people that go through this. And luckily I met you. I've met people that I don't feel so not normal.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like you've been fighting for years. So it gave me like peace,
Yeah.
to be honest,
Yeah.
because I felt so different.
Yeah. And all those people that you have mentioned, Baby Girl and Ams and Q and Millie and
Yeah.
and all of them, I mean that's the community, and I talk about it a lot in my podcast, and it's a very important part of my life. I'm 55 years old, and I'm sitting here talking to people on TikTok. The reason I do that is because they get it. I don't have to sit here and explain to them about fatigue or pain, or because they all
Yeah.
understand it. And I think that is just such an important part to anybody that is suffering with any kind of a chronic diagnosis, is to find people that understand, because sometimes it's not there with family and friends. They're not dealing with it, so
No.
they don't get it. And that community where we met, a couple weeks ago, and I just love everything about it. It's very positive. And the baby girl, I know that she is a very important part in your life. I love baby girl too. She is just an awesome lady, and it's a very important part of my life, the TikTok community.
Because, like you said, people that don't have it don't understand. Because, like, one minute I can be okay, and then another minute I'm not. Like, and I didn't understand where all this was coming from. Like the fatigue, the passing out, the dizziness all the time. Some days I can get up, or sometimes I can get up, my legs don't feel so heavy, and then 10 minutes you,
Yeah,
you try to walk and they just stop working with you.
right.
So it was
I'm just blown away. I'm blown away, Amanda, at, you got, like I said, you've beaten cancer. You got a POTS diagnosis, you got an NMO diagnosis, you got an MS diagnosis, and you are very, very positive. And you don't sit around and say pity me, and I
No,
want you to feel sorry for me. I mean, you just want people to understand, what you've been through, the battles you've been through, and how hard you're fighting, and that's all you're doing. And that's why I started this podcast, is just to let people have that platform to explain their situation and their journey. And I just think you're just a badass, for being as new as you are in this MS diagnosis and NMO, and you came to me and asked me, "Hey, Brian, I would love to do a podcast episode with you." And for you to do that, that's courage, Amanda. And I really admire that about you.
I think after you have, like with the mental part, I think after you have a cancer that, like when I was in the hospital, the nurses were watching videos on how to treat me. They didn't know what they were doing. Um, I think after you get diagnosed with that, you go through a very, very dark, dark depression. So the way I look at it now is I got more time. I made life goals. Like I got to see a baby turn 21 March 1st.
Yeah.
I got to, I've made it through birthdays. I've made it through my kids going to college, graduations. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
that is what I look forward to. My stepdaughter just having a baby. Like I got to watch stuff that 5 years ago I wouldn't have been here.
Yeah.
When I had my gallbladder taken out and they found that, my gallbladder was actually leaking inside of my body.
Yeah.
They had told me that day, if you hadn't have come in when you did, you would not have woke up the next day.
Right.
The cancer was so bad because they're not like regular cancer tumors. Like I said, it shoots that stuff through your whole digestive system, your brain, everything.
Yeah.
When they told me when I did my surgery, it's a 50-50 chance. That's all we can offer you.
Yeah.
And I did the chemo after that. And I only did that because, like I said, my mom had been fighting colon cancer. And I got to do a research study where it would be chemo pills
Mhm.
for people that, chemo sucks. Like if you make it through chemo, you're very, very strong.
Right.
But I did that because 6 months later, my mom was doing the chemo pills. So I felt like this was a learning curve and I was being used to teach people. Like, I talk to people all the time that don't realize some of their symptoms aren't MS related.
Right.
When you have MS, you think anything going weird in your body is MS, but sometimes it's not MS.
Exactly. Yeah, like I said, I've had 4 spine surgeries. I've gone to my neuro and be like, hey, I got leg pain, and they send me to an orthopedic. They look at my MRI,
Yep.
and I mean, I have other issues. I mean, I've had a lot of trauma in my life, car accidents, playing football. I got spine issues, and that's on top of my MS. I know that,
Hmm.
I've been diagnosed with cancer. I've had a skin cancer, a melanoma. I mean, that wasn't MS related. I mean, there's going to be other things that come up in life,
Yep.
and you just got to keep on pushing forward, and that's what you're about, Amanda. I mean, you take everything, like we talked about this before, how you said that you've gotten to see these things, and I said the same thing. I've had MS 28 years, and I've lived through some great things with my MS. My kids being
Yep.
born, my nieces and nephews being born, and them having kids and weddings. I mean, I just take every day for what it is, and I enjoy it.
Yeah.
I can't work anymore, but I wake up every day, and I like being outside in the summertime. I just enjoy whatever I can enjoy. And that's what you're doing. You're taking it every day by day, and enjoying what you have, Amanda.
I think it makes you look at life different because, people, I tell, I tell people all the time, like, you can't stress about what is beyond your control,
All right.
and I feel like stress kills people. Like it puts them, I when my mom died, I know my mobility got worse. I was getting lesions because I was stressing.
Right.
And I kept trying to tell myself, because she had fought cancer for 3 years and it went from colon to liver, and at the end it was everywhere.
Yeah.
And I kept saying my mom wouldn't want it to live like that. She was in a lot of pain. It was her time, but that was a very detrimental thing to me, to be fighting cancer and then watching her die from it.
Right.
And she made me promise her right before she died that I would never give up. And that's what I've been doing. Because then I think, well, what if my kids get this? What if one of them, they can't figure out what's wrong with them?
Right.
It's set in stone, this, and this runs through your family. I know they say MS isn't hereditary, but between, how you live your life, because I don't know how many people tell me, well, if you stop doing this and stop doing this, you'll be so much better. If it was that easy, nobody would be sick.
I wish it was that easy. I mean,
Oh my God,
everybody has ideas on how what would make our life better, and I always sit there and think to myself, you don't think I thought of that? You don't think I tried that? You don't think?
Yeah, if it was that easy, we wouldn't be where we're at.
Right. Yeah, Amanda, I really want to thank you. I appreciate everything that you're about, talking to you. And like I said, I mean, you're so new in this diagnosis, and for you to want to come out and talk about it just to help spread awareness, I just really want to thank you for joining me today. What is your screen name on TikTok if anybody wants to follow you on there? Because I know you're on lives a lot, and you're starting to get a lot more active in the community. But if anybody wants to follow you on TikTok, what is your screen name?
Amanda.
Oh, okay.
And then it's got a MS heart.
Oh, you got the orange hearts next to it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. All right. I will put that in the description. Is there anything that you want to tell anybody that's out there listening? They might be, in a similar situation as you, with a dual diagnosis, with an MS or with the cancer diagnosis. What would your message be to them? That the sun's going to come up in the morning. You just got to figure it out, and you got to keep on fighting, Amanda.
I mean, you really do, because you don't want to be another statistic, because what you're going through could save somebody else's life. I mean, I know it sucks because, nobody did it for me, or nobody did it for my mom, or nobody did it for my daughter, but it's a learning process. And if you can help somebody else, and the most important thing is, don't let the darkness take you.
Yeah.
You have to enjoy what you have. And, I've met a few people that I've told them, I'm like, I think the MS sat you down, because, I've met a lot of people that had a lot of trauma, was going through some crazy stuff, and the MS put them where they needed to be. I know that sounds crazy.
Yeah.
But it made their whole life change.
Oh yeah. I've talked to so many people since I started doing this podcast, and they say that they're actually a better person after their diagnosis.
Yeah.
It made them see things a lot differently.
Yep. And I mean, I don't wish this on anybody, but if you are going through it, you have to advocate for yourself, and you have to come to peace with it, honestly. Because like I said, I felt so out of place. I didn't know anybody that had anything like me. I didn't know anybody that felt the way I did. And then when I got on Baby Girls Live, I met a whole bunch of people that are going through the same thing I am. And honestly, that's my laughter. They have changed my, I don't have anxiety anymore.
Yeah.
It's wild, because I've met people that are like me. So don't think, if you are going through this, that you are alone, because there is other people that are going through this and that have been through this. Like I said, I had been sick since 2018, but when you have cancer, I should have been diagnosed with MS years ago.
Right.
Like years ago.
Right.
But when you have cancer, they're just trying to save your life.
Right.
Other stuff, I mean, MS is important. Your other diseases are important to find, but what's the point of finding them if they can't save you for the next couple of years?
Right. Amanda, I want to thank you again for coming on with me. I really enjoyed talking to you. I know that there's so much good information that you gave, just with how you're fighting the fight, and just talking a
Thank
little
you.
bit more about NMO, because I'm still kind of ignorant to that. I'm learning more and more about it, and I just really appreciate you just trying to help spread awareness about what it's like living with chronic disease.
You're welcome. And if anybody has any questions there, feel free to message me. I
All right.
don't
Okay, I'm gonna get going here. If you want to follow Amanda, I'll put everything in the podcast description. If you want to follow me on TikTok, you can find me MS Michigan Man 64, and I'm on Instagram MS Michigan Man 64, and I'm also on Facebook Brian Wallace out of Brunswick, Ohio. Share it out.
and I
Oh, I'm sorry.
definitely appreciate
Go ahead.
what you're doing for people.
Oh, thank you.
You're getting people's story out there. It's amazing. I'm glad I found you.
Oh, I'm glad you found me too. I'm glad you found me too, Amanda. All right, I'm going to get going. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. We want to be understood. The best way to be understood is to listen to us talk. Till the next episode, this is the MS Michigan Man 64. I am out.